Some secrets were buried beneath the abbey, but not deep enough. The claw marks on the walls, Friedrich's lifeless body, Hans's haunting, glowing eyes. Gertrude's warning echoed in my mind, a prophecy of blood and shadow. She said it was a curse, a darkness tied to our village, to the very stones of the ancient abbey overlooking our lives. I, Matthias, had to find the truth before this ancient evil consumed us all. The church archives were a tomb of dust and forgotten history. Hours bled into one another as I deciphered the brittle, spidery script of abbots long dead. Then I found it. A hidden entry from the 15th century. Abbot Benedict, fearing raids and heretics, confessed to a forbidden ritual. He wrote of summoning a guardian to protect the abbey, a creature of immense power bound by blood. He called it the Blood Watcher. The ink describing its nature was smudged, as if by a trembling hand. He wrote that the guardian's hunger was a price, a terrible, eternal price. Meanwhile, Anna, grieving for her brother, sought solace in her grandmother's belongings. In a small, dust-covered trunk, tucked beneath yellowed linens, her fingers brushed against something hard and cold. It was a rosary, but not like any she had ever seen. The beads were carved from a dark, almost black wood, strangely heavy. A small folded note was tied to the crucifix. Her grandmother's shaky handwriting read, "For the dark times, when the old things awaken." As Anna held it, the beads felt strangely warm against her skin, a faint, almost imperceptible pulse emanating from within. That evening, the Golden Stag Tavern, usually a place of cheer, was shrouded in fear. Whispers spread like a plague from table to table. The Blood Watchers, it's returned. Old stories dismissed as children's tales were resurrected with chilling new belief. Then the most terrifying news of all arrived with a breathless farmer. Hans was missing. He hadn't returned from the woods since the night Friedrich died. A collective dread settled over the room. The monster from our nightmares was real, and now it had a familiar face. The night air was shattered by screams and the crackle of fire. We rushed out to see the Zimmermann family, farmhouse engulfed in a column of orange flame that clawed at the dark sky. The heat was unbearable, the smell of burnt wood and something else, something foul, choked the air. We pulled the family out, but Berta, the matriarch, was catatonic, her eyes fixed on the inferno. She kept whispering the same thing over and over. It came out of the flames, walking on two legs. It wasn't afraid of the fire, it just walked. I found Gertrude sitting by her hearth, staring into the embers as if reading a future written in ash. I told her what Berta had seen. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a sorrow as old as the mountains. "The curse never dies, Matthias," she said softly. "It only sleeps. When a bower bleeds with rage or despair upon the abbey's grounds, the Watcher awakens. It latches onto them, feeds on their pain, and wears their skin until there is nothing left but the monster. Hans, he is gone." Her words were a death sentence. By morning, despair had turned to resolve. We couldn't hide any longer. We would face this thing. I stood with Father Johann, his face pale but his grip tight on his silver cross. Wilhelm and Heinrich, brothers whose families had farmed this land for generations, stood ready with hunting rifles. Karl, the blacksmith, held a heavy, sharpened axe, and young Klaus, barely a man, clutched a pitchfork, his fear overshadowed by a fierce need to protect his home. Together, we would march to the abbey. We would end this. The path to the abbey was a journey into another world. A thick, unnatural fog rolled down from the hills, swallowing the familiar landscape and muffling all sound except our own ragged breaths. The air grew cold, heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay. Ancient moss-covered stones began to emerge from the mist, markers from a time before the church, carved with pagan symbols that seemed to writhe in the periphery. A faint, sickly green light pulsed from the carvings, a forgotten power stirring in its sleep. We finally reached the clearing. In the center of the ruined abbey, where the main altar once stood, was a circle of stones, and piled within it, bones, so many bones, human and animal, splintered and gnawed, a testament to centuries of slaughter. The sheer horror of it stole the air from our lungs. This wasn't just a ruin, it was a feeding ground, a butcher's yard. This was the Blood Watcher's lair. Father Johann pointed towards an opening in the ground I had never seen before, a dark moor leading down into the earth. The crypt. Hesitantly, we descended into the suffocating darkness. The walls were cold and slick with moisture. In the flickering light of our lanterns, we saw what remained of the Abbey's first failure. Thick iron chains, shattered and twisted, lay on the floor as if broken by impossible strength. And on the walls, frantic scratches, words of desperation carved into the stone. It is me, but not me. And lower down, almost hidden in the shadows, a final chilling plea. Kill me before I kill you. Suddenly a loud thud from above. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. It was here. We scrambled out of the crypt, weapons raised, hearts hammering against our ribs. And there, standing in the center of the bone-ringed altar, was Hans, or what was left of him. He was taller, broader, his body contorted into a form that was not quite human. His eyes, they were no longer the eyes of our friend. They were burning amber embers, filled with ancient hunger and profound pain. He looked at me, a flicker of recognition in the inferno. "Matthias," he rasped, his voice a gravelly echo. "It hurts. I can't stop it." Then the transformation began. His silhouette stretched and warped against the grey sky, his bones cracking and reforming under his skin. We saw no gore, only the horrifying outline of a man being unmade, devoured from the inside out. "Fire!" Wilhelm screamed. The rifles cracked, the sound swallowed by the fog. The bullets struck the creature, but it barely flinched, staggering only for a moment before letting out a howl that was a terrifying mix of human agony and predatory rage. Chaos erupted. The creature lunged, a blur of shadow and claws. I saw Karl go down, a strangled cry lost in the mayhem. The others scattered, running for their lives, their shots wild and panicked. It was a slaughter. We had been fools to think we could fight it. Just as the beast turned its burning eyes on me, a new light cut through the fog. A torch. Anna and Gertrude stood at the edge of the clearing. Gertrude held the torch high, while Anna clutched the black rosary, which now glowed with an eerie, burning light. Without a word, Gertrude hurled the torch onto the altar. It didn't just burn, it erupted. A pillar of brilliant blue flame shot into the sky, and the very ground around the altar began to crack and split open. The creature that was once Hans screamed as the light seared it. It was being pulled, dragged by an unseen force towards the chasm of blue fire opening in the earth. Half man, half beast, it struggled, its amber eyes locking with Anna's one last time. "Hans!" she cried out, her voice clear and strong. "It's time to rest." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. A single whispered word reached us across the chaos. "Thank you." Then he fell. A silent, blinding explosion of blue light washed over the Abbey, and then absolute silence. The fog dissipated. The unnatural cold was gone. The chasm had sealed itself, leaving behind only scorched earth and the faint smell of ozone. The curse was broken. Hans was free. We had survived, but the forest would forever remember the price of peace and the terrible guardian born from a desperate prayer. It was over. Thank you so much for joining us for the thrilling conclusion of The Blood Watcher. If you enjoyed this cinematic story, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next adventure into the unknown. We'll see you in the next one.